Welcome to This Week, 60 minutes of analytical review of the big stories, topical issues, and all the controversies around the world. I'm Somna Sambu. Our top stories: Nigeria's new service chiefs are decorated. The president tells them to free the country from insecurity. Fighting insurgency. Security experts and former military officers reject calls for engagement of mercenaries to fight terrorism as requested by Northeast Governors Forum. Plus, northern traders lift ban on supply of food, cattle, and other commodities to southern Nigeria after protests over killing of their members and destruction of their goods.
This is the first vaccine
To get underway in Nigeria, a doctor at the forefront of the pandemic is the first in the country to receive a shot. President Muhammadu Buhari has asked the new service chiefs to step up military operations in the country. Speaking during the decoration ceremony, Buhari told them to free the country from insecurity quickly, with results beginning from a few weeks. He says he wants farmers to be able to return to their fields during the rainy season without fear. The president asked them to see their appointment and promotion as a serious task to restore confidence among Nigerians.
We all look forward to you to perform, and I, as the CNC, I'm backing you 100%, and I expect you to effectively deploy your officers and men to secure the country.
On behalf of the service chiefs, I'd like to pledge the unalloyed loyalty of the members of the Armed Forces of Nigeria to you, Mr. President, and to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We will, based on the mandate and the trust that you have bestowed on us, do everything in our power to address all issues appertaining to insecurity in the country, working in concert with other security agencies and, of course, the ministries, departmental agencies in that regard.
For analysis, let's bring in Arise analyst, Professor Abiodun Adeni, and during the show we'll be joined by Dr. Leonard Zenwa, the National Chairman of the Interparty Advisory Council. And also, to join us later on is Dr. Kabiru Adamu, a defense and security analyst. Let's start with you, Prof. What's your take on this decoration? We've seen the new Irabo being upgraded to a full general, and then we have all others, like the Chief of Army Staff being a Lieutenant General, and then continuing with the rest. What's your view on what Buhari said, that he wants competence to be looked upon in deploying troops, but he also wants capable people, and he's not counting on paper qualifications alone. That's those right. Who will deliver and ensure that in a few weeks' time we have results so that farmers will go back to their fields and the country will be secured.
Yeah, absolutely, Soma. Thanks for bringing me on. I think there are so many angles to it. First, that is a personal glory. You know, it's worthy of celebration on the part of those who have been promoted, because promotions in the army, if a promotion in any service for that matter, is a mark of commitment, dedication over the years. And in the case of the military, you know, for conscientious service to fatherland, you know. So at the level, that's at the level of personal glory, you know, exemplification of dedication, you know. But beyond that is for them to realize that the promotion in the circumstance is also a call to service, because we're in dire times, you know, and the burden, you know, the buck in terms of the provision of leadership, military leadership, largely rests on them. The president has given them the charge, and it is their responsibility to see these, you know, as a time for them to deliver, you know. And I'm also happy with the comment of the president, you know, that, you know, they need to know what they are up to, because we do not want a situation where officers or people will be in our public offices, you know, whether or not they perform, they will just remain there. You know, there should be a benchmark, a kind of key performance index, you know, some kind of template that if at some point you are seen not to be performing, you should be show the exit so that there will be some kind of reference point for others around, and they will realize that, well, I'm not here to see it as a traditional stool. If I'm not performing, I can be asked to go. And that is also could also be a ginger. That's what we need in the circumstance. So it's a welcome development for the president, to be giving this, to have given the service chiefs a marching order. But beyond giving them the marching order is for us to see that the mandate is effectively and productively executed in the light of the dire times that we are in.
All right, we have Dr. Kabiru Adamu joining us right away. And I want to have your view, Doctor, on the comment by Mr. President actually saying that, look, it's not paper qualifications that should be looked upon by these service chiefs. He's looking for people who are competent enough to deliver the goods, people who can ensure that there's a return to security across the country. He's charging these army chiefs, naval chiefs, air chiefs, and all of that to deploy their most competent men, not those who have paper qualifications or who have higher ranks. What's your view on all of this? Oh, sorry, Doctor. It looks like you can't hear me. Okay. Let me just go back to you.
Thank you,
Doc.
Good evening. So it's the interface between President Buhari and the newly appointed service chiefs, as well as the directives that President Buhari has given them, is absolutely important at this point in time. Now, in the first hand, it gives us an opportunity to hear from President Buhari what his vision is for the defense sector. That's on the positive side. On the other hand, unfortunately, it also tells me that part of what we have been crying and pleading with the government to review, this emphasis on the military, is likely going to happen. Even though we have heard from the newly appointed Chief of Defense Staff that he's going to work with the other security agencies to achieve this order or directive that Mr. President has given him. The fact that Mr. President spoke directly to them and frankly did not refer to this cooperation or coordination between them and the other security agencies tells me that going forward, it's still going to be that kind of emphasis on the military. Now, having said that as one of the, I would say, negatives from that interaction, the other things I would like to see going forward from the directive of Mr. President is for the Chief of Defense Staff, the Chief of Air Staff, and the other service chiefs to look critically at the existing policies and strategies that we have in security. So we have a national defense policy, we have a national counterterrorism strategy, we have a revised national security strategy 2019, and several other policies in this area. Now, what we haven't seen is a review of the implementation of all of those policies. Like my co-discussant mentioned there, ideally there should be key performance indicators as part of the implementation strategy of these documents. Now, are we following the implementation strategy? Are there gaps that have existed? Now, as an outsider who has studied these policies, I can tell you clearly that there are lots of gaps within the implementation of those policies. So I'm hoping that in the first few days of the service chiefs and the Chief of Defense Staff, that part of what they will do is an internal review to find out in terms of areas they have been able to meet the objectives of those policies and strategies, as well as the gaps that currently exist. Now, what that would do for them is perhaps like a SWOT analysis. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? How would they be able to meet the gaps between the strength and weaknesses in order to achieve the overarching objectives of these policies that have been laid out from them? I'm not expecting the military to do it all. Frankly, that is not the essence of these policies that I've mentioned. The policies recognize the roles of all the other 24 ministries, departments, and agencies within the security subsector. So it would do them very well to ensure they carry along the other, civil security departments, 24 of them, so that, we're talking about the fact that they are stretched, and it's a fact, they are stretched. They are carrying on burdens that, frankly, are beyond what they can execute. So the best way to do that is to carry these other agencies along, so that it reduces
very
the burden
interesting
on them,
point
and it
you
also
have
gives
there.
them the ability to incorporate the support of these other agencies.
Now, okay, just hang on there. Let's have the views of Dr. Leonard Nzenwa of the Interparty Advisory Council. You had a briefing yesterday where you called for the declaration of a state of emergency across the country, particularly these troubled areas. What led you to that, and why? How do you think these new service chiefs, after their decoration, will be able to bring these results that people like Dr. Gabriel and Prof. Adeni here have said?
Thank you very much. I think I do not envy the president. I also do not envy the service chiefs. This is like a battle of their life. And you heard it very clearly from the president. I see when he was giving that charge over the weekend that this is a man that he's just on that point of breaking point. What he wants is result. And that's why he said, look, it's not about paper qualification, whatever it is. It is go there and get this job done. However you're going to do it is not this thing. Now, why we came to this conclusion, my constituency, which is the political parties as well as the politicians, are terribly impacted negatively. Of course, a situation where you have people are being plucked out like chickens across the country, where you see people can't sleep with their eyes closed. It's terrible. The political system is contracting, just like as the economic system is also contracting. So we're impacted heavily. And at the end of it, you have a mother that is widowed. You have fathers that are being laid to the grave. You have our daughters who are being raped. You have our boys who are being taken as hostage. No country will want anything like this to go on. What we need to do basically, whether it's my constituency or any constituency, is also to put our differences and come to the table and let's get this resolved once and for all. For my constituency, why we took that decision, because we have done extensive consultation. There has to be deeper collaboration, deeper coordination. It's just failure of intelligence. I'll give you a clear example. I have never seen the Nigerian armed forces, whether it's the police, if they go outside this country, they come back with laurels. They come back with great achievements. Why is it that when they are here, they're not getting the result? What is actually happening?
So are you saying that there's a lot of political interference in military decisions?
Very clear, very clear. And it's very clear when the service chiefs was changed. You saw how the military jubilated. If you go to the barracks, everybody was jubilating. It's very clear. We need to completely get the politics out of the military. It is about competence. It's not about rank. You have somebody who could be at the lower rank of the space. He can go there and deliver this thing. And so what we are asking now is this. Every constituency, whether it's the market woman, whether it is the media itself, whether it is the churches, everybody's impacted. We are in this studio. If there's any security breach here, we're not going to be here again.
All right, just hold your thoughts. Let's get the view of Prof here. I mean, he has said that there's a lot of political interference in military decision making. But, you know, at this time, briefly, you can see that this appointment at this level is all political. Yeah. So can you totally divorce politics from military decisions?
No, I think it's practically impossible to divorce, politics from every process and procedure, be it military or any other for that matter, But in the fight to secure our land, we need also to understand that it's not just about hard power alone. Soft power equation also matter. The military are concerned with hard power. What about the intelligent aspect of it, like you mentioned? What about the soft aspect of it, like that is also very, very significant? And what do I mean by soft aspect? There's a process through which the insurgents, for instance, the bandits, through which their army, is reinforced, through which they populate their process. Are we dealing with those processes? We also need that. Those are the
just hold your thoughts here. When we come back, we'll continue with that. We just have to go on a short break. Right. Time for a short break now. There's more when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back to This Week, where we hold the best of conversations and analysis. I'm Somna Sambo, and I still have with me here this gentleman, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, who's an Arise News analyst, and then Dr. Leonard Zenwa, who's the chairman of the Interparty Advisory Council. We also have with us Dr. Kabiru Adamu, who is a Nigerian defense and security analyst. But let's just come back to you, the point you were trying to make about the politicization of decision-making in the military and these new service chiefs, what role they will have to play, how they will go through the minds of political decision-making and military decision-making at the same time.
Absolutely. And I was going to making the point that there's no sector of the system of a society that is immune to politicization. But what matters is how you handle it. You know, how you try to find an equilibrium between politicization and actual service to the people, you know, actual service to your country. But above all is for us to also understand that there's a hard and soft aspect, you know, to the fight against insurgency, kidnapping, you know, and banditry.
But that part is supposed to be coordinated by the Office of the National Security Advisor. But
we can't say they're not doing well or they're not doing what they're supposed to do. But before they came, you need to understand that, you know, every crime actually is a product of the contradictions inherent in the system. For instance, we've been fighting Boko Haram for nearly over 10 years now. You know, why? And of course, you take it for granted that the military has eliminated so many of them. So what is that mechanism that keeps, that leads to the generation or the production of, you know, more insurgents, more Boko Haram activists, you know? Why have we not been able to cut that chain? It just tells you that, you know, the system itself, there are lots of contradiction in the system that bred, you know, these nihilists in the first instance. You know, what about the kidnappers? Kidnapping and banditry came much after insurgents became emphasized, you know.
And it's now been a very big business.
That's right. So how was it possible for our system to produce, you know, these deviants over the years? We need to address that soft aspect of it, which is the contradictions inherent in the system that keep leading to the production of this level of criminality.
All right. Yeah. Addressing that soft aspect of it, like he has said, is what has made people like Sheikh Gumi to go around, talk about asking for amnesty for these bandits and all of that. One would want to wonder, what's the view of politicians about, you know, granting amnesty to these bandits?
I think it's basically laughable that we come up with such ideas that we should grant amnesty to a bunch of criminals and bandits.
And why do you say so?
I understand the inherent contradiction in our society. Nigeria is not the only society where you have such things. It's also prevalent in all societies. If we begin to grant amnesty to a bunch of people that have been killing, be wasting life, they don't do this. They don't just get you for getting sick. They get you and waste your life. You're shedding blood, and you ask us to, because you have one other reason or the other, then you should grant an amnesty. But that means the robbers can also form a group of business entity and begin to ask for an amnesty. The point is this: we should not in any way propose this kind of outlandish suggestion of having amnesty. I think it's just too bad, and it's not something that should be done. Whatever happens is, if they are aggrieved, there are channels, there are corridors with which they can go about doing this, and not basically to hold everybody to ransom. Or else we have also, it's a matter of you know, exchanging of forces. Every individual can begin to pick up gun and begin to do the same. So what I'm saying is, amnesty is not for us, and we not support it. We do not support it, and we do ask Mr. President not to even go into that.
The political wing of the Nigerian society here says that we should not embrace amnesty for these bandits, as canvassed by Sheikh Gumi. Well, the Northeast Governors Forum says the Nigerian government is not committed to ending the insurgency ravaging the region, and it's the hardest hit. The forum says it is making plans to form a regional security outfit to help in tackling the challenges. Governors are calling on the government to seek support from neighboring countries, especially Chad, Cameroon, and Niger, to end the crisis. And I go straight to you, Dr. Kabiru Adamu. What will you say to this comment, which has received lots of hits and knocks by some top security analysts, former military chiefs, and all of that, that we should do away with that thought of bringing in, you know, mercenaries like we did in 2014 with Ibn Balo and all of that. What's your thought?
Okay, thank you, Somna. There are two issues that so one of them is the engagement with our neighboring countries, and then the other one is the engagement of mercenaries or private contractors, as the case may be. Now, the engagement with our neighboring countries is already in place through the platform of the multinational joint task force. As you're aware, about 4 countries, Niger, Chad, Cameroon, and Benin Republic, have troop deployment within the multinational joint task force, and they have been supporting the implementation of the counter-terrorism strategy in the Lake Chad basin. The argument has always been whether each country will be allowed to come into the other country in what is called the hot pursuit principle. I know at a point the debate was whether they will be allowed 20 kilometers or 50 kilometers into the other neighboring countries, and that debate has never been settled. At one point, they agreed 20 kilometers, but then even then, that there is a lot of distrust between the members of that multinational joint task force. Now, for private contractors, like everything in life, there are advantages and disadvantages. Some of the advantages of using private contractors is that they are not guided by, frankly, any laws. They can, you give them a responsibility, they get that responsibility done. They don't care whose ox is God in the process of establishing or meeting that responsibility. And that includes sometimes local laws as well as international laws. And so that is why a lot of countries are hesitant, because they leave behind them trails that unfortunately would usually have consequences. But in terms of getting the immediate objective done, most times they are very effective in doing that. And so when under the Goodluck Jonathan administration, we engaged them, they were able to successfully at least reach a certain point in terms of the implementation of the counter-terrorism strategy. Now that the governor of Borno State, as well as the other governors of Northeast Nigeria, are making that call, there are questions that at least
all right, yes, I understand that very quickly, so but I just want you to tell us if indeed it's a good thing for us to have these private military contractors who are called soldiers of fortune, actually by some people, fighting aside our military, if that will deliver the quickest result that President Buhari is looking for at the moment.
So, like I was trying to explain, it's a yes and no answer. We can engage them and give them a responsibility. Now, it depends on the process of engaging them. It depends on how we outline that responsibility. So, as an example, if we give them a task, bring us the head of Shekau in 3 months, or the head of the Islamic State in West Africa province, bring his head in 3 months. So a lot would determine whether they will be able to achieve that. And that's why it's not easy for me to sit here and ask. The governor of Borno State did not specify the terms of the engagement. Does he just want them to come so that they can clear the remnants of the 2 groups that are active in the Lake Chad region? If that is why he wants them there, I can tell you with all sense of responsibility that they can't do that within 3 months. The kind of intelligence that would be required to penetrate the groups and identify the locations of their leadership, as well as allow a tactical incision within that group, I doubt if a private military contractor can achieve that.
However, all right, just hold your thoughts there. Let's get the view of Dr. Adeni here. Yes. In just 1 minute, what's the political implication of having private military contractors come into Nigeria once again to help our military?
Well, but I think the world is increasingly decentered, and if we can get help from outside in other areas of life, in economic development, even in our political evolution, there's nothing wrong with getting technical assistance for us to deal with criminality that is going overboard. So let's assume maybe we should.
Wouldn't that be a vote of no confidence on our
No, I don't think it matters. It depends on how you
in?
define it. That's why I think that maybe we should get away with the word mercenary, soldiers of fortune, and concentrate on using the word, maybe taking some kind of military technical assistance in terms of tactics
Can't we get that from other countries?
Strategy. Yeah, but what's wrong from other countries? So these mercenaries are also from other countries, isn't it? So what if it was United States of America or the UK that say they want to come and give us some kind of technical assistance, to deal with this insurgents? Are we going to see it as mercenary involvement in our fight against this?
Right, just hold your
hold
your thoughts there.
So technical
for a short break.
Better,
when we come back, we'll continue with this debate. Stay with us. Welcome back to This Week, where we hold the best of conversations and analysis. I'm Somna Sambo. Northern traders in Nigeria have presented the government with a list of demands to end the food embargo in the country. Ethnic conflicts led to the recent food blockade imposed on the South. Among the demands made include a stop to the endless killing of Northerners in the South and compensation for the lives and properties lost during clashes in the region. They also want justice for the victims and an end to extortion and harassment by law enforcement agencies on the highways. Let's take a listen. And I want to ask you how much of this political situation was resolved by President Muhammadu Buhari using the likes of Yahya Bello to actually get into this issue, although the Northern Elders Forum has said that the inclusion of people like Fani Kaede is questionable because he has supported Sunday Igboho's action against Northerners when there was this clashes in Shasha, in Oyo State and all of that. But how do you think this political solution will last? Will it last long, or is it just a temporary relief for Nigerians?
Well, I will not stay here and say clearly or determine how long it will last or how long it will not last. I also note that the various toxic, people say that the emergence of Femi Kaede has toxic impact on the whole thing. The bottom line is that when you are overwhelmed with buckets of wicked problems, as we currently have in this country now, you have problem solvers being thrown into the field. And these problem solvers can come from different places. I do not, if I have the capacity and I'm on the same window or the same corridor to do that, I also do the same. And so this is why I commend people like Yahya Bello, even though some people say he has some political motive.
Yeah, I mean, some people have said
yes,
it's to further his interest as he's looking for the presidency in 2023.
Yes. I've heard that very clearly. It has cut across that it's basically around, the motivation is squared around political motivations and all that. But the point is this, we've got some respite around this now. The thing I want to say is this is one big country. This is the biggest country we've had in this part of the world. This is a country that is blessed. I do not see why we are going to use our own hands to destroy this country, all because of some parochial interest, some interests that are undefined, some interests that are completely ambiguous to every person. We take cue from very similar countries like Sudan and South Sudan. This, after prodding the South Sudan to go and have independence, they are all killing themselves like animals. And you see the Western media now calling them as animists. That means they eat animals and all that. The point we're making is, wherever it is coming from, let us have peace. Now, regarding their molestation in the southeast, in the south, and the compensation being demanded, we should get out of this bucket of any time you have a group of people coming together, compensate. You're a businessman. You have risk when you are doing business. If you get on the road and you see the business, you take it. That's the way it is. It's business you're doing. Right. And so you should not take your business risk and begin to impute it and ask the government to take care of that. But what we should know is that everybody should conduct himself or herself in such a manner that you don't go about molesting people or killing people.
All right, I want to get the views of Dr. Kabir Adamu on this. Considering that they are asking for about 4.7 billion naira compensation and all of that, despite this political solution that has been found to this crisis, which has made it to be abated, would you suggest that the government pay that amount of money? What other efforts do you think should be put in place to ensure that there is no escalation of this issue or a recurrence in the future? And do you have any other solutions to proffer on the way forward to prevent this kind of blockade in the future?
Thank you, Somna. So because of time, I'll quickly mention 3 things that are absolutely important that have led us to where we are. Number 1 is the breakdown of the criminal justice system, its inability to arrest offenders and to punish offenders. Number 2 is the inability of our politicians to manage our differences in a progressive manner and to replace what in political science we call centrifugal forces by centripetal forces. And I'm glad we have a politician in our midst. Perhaps he will speak about that. And then thirdly is this desire
frozen there. Let's come to you, Prof. Yeah. Let's talk about all of this. Does it matter who brings peace? as long as we get peace, because these issues of Fani Kayede's involvement, as the Northern Elders Forum have said, some people have said that it's just being petty, while a lot of them have also said, yes, they have some issues with his involvement, because he actually supported Sunday Igboho when this issue was happening, and he didn't call for people to stop killing Northerners, especially who are traders in that part.
I think it's actually gracious, is nobler indeed, to look at the bigger picture by not focusing on personalities. We're concerned about peace because peace is priceless. And of course, like Doctor was trying to allude to, Nigeria is a plural, variegated, differentiated ethnic system, and that kind of system, sometimes you see ethnic groups trying to ventilate some kind of imperfections, some kind of letdown. And when we see it coming out with this kind of blockade, I'm not going to patronize you and all of those things, sometimes it may not really matter. What matters is the attitude of leadership, in trying to resolve those differences. And I've said this severally, there's no system in this world that is completely homogeneous, just like there's no system that is completely heterogeneous. It's one of management, management and the approach of leader. And when we talk about leadership, we're not talking about political leadership alone. Leadership cut across, all the sectors of the system. It could be military leadership, public service leadership, civil service leadership, traditional leadership, and sometimes we're even having non-state actors, presenting themselves as leaders as well. How do you engage this set of leaders? But above all, the buck stops somewhere. And in recent times, we have seen, the central figure taking action, changing his reflexes, making some pronouncements like shooting aside, showing some kind of concern, irrespective of previous criticisms about, his lethargic or reluctance, to react to some of these things. So we are seeing progress. And it's not necessarily about the actions being taken, as long as they are not damning, they are not dangerous, but how we react to it.
But I've been told that we have Dr. Kabir Adamo back, and so I just want you to conclude your thoughts, as you were saying earlier on. All right. I've been told we are still having some technical challenges. Okay. Now let's come back to you. When you see the president giving an order that whoever holds an AK-47, the person should be shot as long as it's not an official person who is sanctioned to carry such an equipment. In the midst of all of this, ethnic clashes, insurgency, banditry, and all of that, what do you make of that statement by Mr. President?
I think this is the man that had it up here. It's a man that has said it all, and it's a man that is sincere now to address and attack the issue frontally. No leader will be in a seat and see all that is happening, all this kind of rascality going on unendingly, that we sit back and watch. It won't happen anywhere in the world. I even commend him for exercising this level of patience. Nobody will want any house to fall under his head. I think Mr. President has waited so long, and now that he's taking the decision to get headlong and get this, let them get on. Nigeria is such a very funny
but some people are also saying it's the failure of the president to take action on time that led to this kind of food blockade, because there's no reason why traders should just decide on their own to block road, and some groups saying that they won't transport food to the south, and some people saying that they won't also allow fuel to get to the north. That this is food security and economic security. Why shouldn't the presidency intervene on time?
Yeah, I think you see, when you are in a particular seat, it's just, for instance, until I got to this position, I was very critical about the whole position of the institution. But when you get there, you see it differently. You need to consult extensively. You need to get intelligence. You need to talk with people who are on the ground. You see, by the time you get these things together, it takes some time.
But when you're wasting time, a lot of lives are lost. A lot of criminals take advantage of the system and all of that.
I agree with you that the president he tarried, and we've missed so much on that account. And I expect him now to go full head and take decisions that will put this country to order. What has happened is what he delayed, he tarried, and is causing this problem. All of us agree that he's responsible for all this. And also note that he said very clearly that he's taking responsibility for all that has taken place. And that is why I say I do not envy him. We're going to be on his neck, we're going to be on his head, because he's the father of the nation. If this country crumbles, it's under him. Mr. President had that to stand up and put this country back in order. All these elements, all these dissidents, all these bandits that are creating problems for us and are making Nigeria suffering. Ethnic jingles and all of that are creating problems. You just have from nocturnal herbalists, you have some nocturnal characters coming up, taking positions, are beginning to, people who cannot come into very, very enlightened environment. Well,
I hope the herbalists are also not using their weapons against Mr. President.
I just can't say.
All right, let's come to you, Prof. Yeah. How do we prevent this kind of issue? Because food security is something that's very, very important for a very first time, some people have said that the northern traders were actually, they should be saluted, because in the past what we've had is that if there are issues in the south and northerners are killed, the next thing is that you see in Sabongari, in Kano, retaliation and all of that. That for the very first time, we should salute their courage for ensuring that they did not resort to violence. But how do we ensure that these kind of issues are resolved? Because food is a very, very important commodity for everyone.
I agree with you that the traders deserve some credit, because the fear in circles was that there would be reprisal attacks, and if it had happened, it could degenerate into something else that our already overwhelmed security may not be able to handle. But it's good development that we're coming to these, this condition, where the resolution is in the offing, if it has not happened yet. But more importantly is for us to just understand that, we cannot be the same in one day. There's beauty in otherness. There's beauty in difference. Divergence is natural. Even the human entity, the body itself has differences. What matters is how they come together in harmony. But going forward, perhaps, it's also a responsible call on the president to be much more, forthcoming in reacting to some of these situations. It took him time.
And some people have said we don't only have the president, there are governors, there are senators,
right,
and so on. So we should reduce the load on the president.
Absolutely. No, not necessarily.
Do you think
I
it's
think
the failure of people at the subnational level and all of that to take decisions that had led people, private people like Fani Kayode, getting involved in the system before Yaya Bello and all of that?
The issue is not necessarily about individuals. It can't be about Fani Kayode. Fani Kayode is just an individual. He's a political activist, and you cannot stop him from plying his trade. So the issue is far beyond him.
Yeah, but the issue was not resolved on time by government. And these are private individuals who felt that if they do not get involved, it could escalate.
Well, overall, I think the president should just be much more proactive, Not just the president, maybe also we talk about security agencies. Now we just heard that there has been some kind of kidnapping in Kaduna Airport. These are areas that are...
It was actually an attack on the
airport, areas
yes.
that are vulnerable. So you'll be wondering, why were there no preemptive attempt? All these areas that are susceptible to
that
criminality.
That kind of facility, for example.
So what is the failure of intelligence, like Dr. alluded to earlier on? What's wrong with our intelligence system? What's wrong with the intelligence mechanism? They will have to be able to react very fast as well, from the top to the bottom. It took time before the president thought about changing the service chief. After there have been so many outcries, after so many reasons were advanced for the service chief to be changed. Of course, we'll have gained some mileage in the fight against criminality, but it took time. You will appreciate him, you understand with him, because it's not necessarily easy, but of course, it's a responsibility that he has to bear, and in trying to bear that responsibility, it shouldn't just be effective, but it's also be fast with it.
Just very quickly, in all of this, we have seen a lot of issues coming up, and some people have said that Nigeria is 1 week, one trouble. If it's not kidnapping, it'll be all of this. In 30 seconds, what would you advise Mr. President to do, especially in the delegation of powers? Because a lot of people said that his ministers are sleeping on duty.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. I need to re-echo and reinforce this. Just as you said, there are a lot of scale in terms of functions of most of the subnational entities. Now, you have governors who are the chief security officers of their states. You have security votes amounting to several billions. You ask yourself, what are the governors are doing with these security votes that you have been empowered to work with, and also see how you can safeguard your environment? That's not happening. And so every time you look at the federal government on what they're doing and all that. So what I'm saying to Mr. President, it's over for sleeping. You've got to get up now and begin to get these guys' ass nailed down. We need to have a peaceful country, and that's the way it should be.
All right, very interesting there. And it's good to see Mr. President actually saying that he takes responsibility as a commander-in-chief for whatever the new service chiefs will be doing. We hope he'll keep taking responsibility, in several issues also, not just military matters. It's time for another short break. There's more when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back to This Week. I'm Sumner Sambo. The long-awaited vaccination drive against the coronavirus has started in Nigeria. Cyprian Young, a doctor who has been taking care of COVID-19 patients since March last year, was the first to get the jab at a hospital here in the capital, Abuja. Let's take a listen.
It's long before now that it is not how fast, but how well. It is not how fast we get the vaccines here, but making sure that we get the right vaccines for our environment, getting the right vaccines that are suitable for our cold chain infrastructure.
All right, we earlier had President Muhammadu Buhari and Vice President Yemi Osinbajo taking these first jabs today on live on national TV. And I still have with me here Arise analyst Professor Abiodun Adeniyi and Dr. Leonard Nzenwa, who's the chairman of the National Chairman of the Interparty Advisory Council. And let's talk about politicians presenting themselves for this vaccination. How much of an influence will that have? Not just the health workers, we had the president and the vice president doing this. How much of an impact do you think it will have on Nigerians, who many keep saying that COVID-19 doesn't exist?
Yeah, I think so. Reconciling the existence and non-existence, I can understand the conspiracy theories around that. It's settled in within the environment. But what I think, for symbolic reasons, which the president have clearly and the vice president have done today, I think my constituency owe it the duty to also go ahead and do that. But what I also will also point out is Nigeria is a very, very interesting environment. Even as the jab was being executed, you find them saying that it has to be the right one. Let us be very careful we don't get, baggages, tons of fake vaccines everywhere. That's also they have to work on. So the institutions, NDLA and the rest of them have to sit up and do all that. I think for symbolic reasons, to also create some level of confidence around the entire process and exercise, I ask my constituency to go ahead and do that if you are not healthy.
All right. Prof, what do you say? The symbolism in all of this, medical workers receiving it too, and how much of an impact this would have on the perception of the average Nigerian who keeps believing this is a hoax?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a nice development. The coming of the vaccine, that is the beginning of the introduction of pharmaceutical methods, to dealing with the virus, beyond the non-pharmaceutical measures, the trinity of face masking, hand hygiene, and social distancing. This is a good development. We hope that there will be better vaccines in the future, or maybe more vaccine candidates are in the offing. We expect that maybe in the future there will be more, and of course it will be better available to Nigerians, as the case could be. But it's also important to deal with the question of misinformation and disinformation being peddled by sections of leadership, not just religious leadership, but political leadership. People disbelieving in the efficacy of the vaccine, on the back of not believing that the COVID-19 is actually a reality. That's a very dangerous belief, in my opinion, and I think the government should also make efforts, to deal with this section of the populace, because they are very influential, that they're opinion mongers, and there's an extent to which they can go to influence, the generality of the people in rejecting the vaccines, and of course, with what the consequence will be. More deaths, from the dreaded virus.
Okay, I would like to come to you, Dr. Leonard Nzenwa. A lot of people have been saying that the politicians should not misuse this like it happened during the palliatives, where we saw some people grabbing some things to go and store just for themselves, their family, or their constituents. How do you think this message can actually sink in very well before we will have politicians corrupting the process, if that may be, or even some top health workers abusing the process of storing this vaccine, just keeping it for certain influential people alone and not the Nigerians as it is targeted for?
Yeah, I think it doesn't repeat itself. I hope it doesn't work. We need to also be very careful when we say politicians. Politicians are part of the whole people. We've got to understand that situations where we completely and wholly blame the politicians for all that happens in this country is
it's not a blame. During the palliatives, you saw what happened. During the lockdown, lots of warehouses being opened here and there, and the blame was on politicians.
Yes,
although not only them.
That's why I'm saying that the blame is always on the politicians. We also have got to take all the players that are also involved in this. It's not only the politicians. But having said that, I do not want to see situations where people begin to take advantage of this. This is life and death matter. We've seen a lot of conspiracy around this. We've seen a lot of people who are trying to distance them all that. I encourage all to ensure that this particular program, this exercise goes on smoothly, and all key actors do the right and proper thing so that Nigerians is not hoarded and will have a peace in this country.
All right, let's talk about what's going on in Senegal right now, gentlemen. A lot of tension, a lot of, like one person has been killed in Senegal right now based on the fact that the main opposition leader there was arrested, and a lot of people have been saying that Macky Sall, the president there, has been pandering to a lot of interest from France, and then he's also made it a hobby to be jailing his opponents, especially when elections are due and all of that. How do you think peace can be restored in that country, as everywhere is burning at the moment?
It's an unfortunate development, considering that Senegal is ordinarily a very peaceful country. If not for the emotion or for the sentiment that is being read to the action, because the offense for which the opposition candidate was arrested for was rape, which is a very criminal offense anywhere in the world. Ordinarily, it's a justified, arrest, but there might be some other things behind it. Perhaps he was framed, but he hasn't been allowed, the decision hasn't been allowed.
The reason why they say he was framed is just because one of the things that he's being accused of is that he was disrupting public order. And how do you, apart from the rape, I mean, it's been on since the last month when those allegations started here. That's and right. There. But what do you define as disrupting public order, for example?
That's what I was going to say.
If not that you're targeting your opponent.
Yeah, I just hope that it's not the case that is peculiar with African leaders to be intolerant of opposition. I just hope this is not the case. But overall, they should allow the criminal justice system to take its course, if it's duly charged, and government also need to assure the people that this is not born out of political reasons, because the destruction going on now is serious. Properties have been destroyed, and it may snowball. Lives have also been lost. The police were almost been lynched yesterday. When the thing broke out. This is unfortunate, and we do not need this kind of development happening again on any African continent, because we are growing, increasingly becoming democratic, and we do not need the hand of the clock, pulled back anymore.
Some people say it's making Africa more poorer when we go into conflict.
Absolutely,
and then it disrupts lots of peace and then economic activities and all of that. Now let's talk about what the Interior Minister Antoine Abdoulaye Diom said yesterday, that he will use all means necessary to restore order. Peace and order. And then the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres was urging protesters, the police and the government to refrain from violence in this country. Senegal has been very peaceful politically, but until this issue started, raising up here and there. How would you advise the president to manage his opposition at this moment? Because some people say whenever it gets close to election, he keeps jailing his opponents.
I think that has been the pedigree. That's exactly, I've heard that several times. What I do say, what I would say is, let the criminal justice system have its way. The president of Senegal should allow that to have its play. And this attitude of consistently, recurringly, when during the period of election, he begins to find excuses and jail his opponent is not in order. But what we need to understand that Senegal almost share a lot of things with Nigeria. They are very emotional people. They are core Africans. And they've had a very peace reign for a very long time. So what I will tell the president is this is democracy. Let him not begin to follow the panderings of the Western powers. You just mentioned France and some other countries. This is your country. We did not have this kind of eruption in this particular country, because one thing I sense and I see that most of the things that happen in most of these African countries have impact. You see these people in other places. Yeah. So we don't want a situation like that, because once you see it now, you see them coming over this side.
Yeah,
and
some people have said that's their own NSAS protest that's happening, because a lot of your people are taking advantage of it to vent their anger on the system and all of that. And people have said that there needs to be a stability. Well, gentlemen, it's been nice having you on this show. Professor Abiodun Adeniyi is a Rise News analyst, and Dr. Leonard Zenwa is the National Chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, a body of all the political parties in Nigeria. It's been nice having you here. And earlier, we had Dr. Kabiru Adamu, Defense and Security Analyst, who was here with us earlier on, but unfortunately we lost him. Well, we want to thank him for participating on the show. That's how it's been for this edition of This Week. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, London, and Washington, goodbye and thank you for watching.